Hey guys, the Wood Craftsman here. So in my previous video launch about the dust collector blower belt squeak or the belt failure, I had mentioned in the video that I had a couple videos that I was editing that were leading up to some changes for 2018-2019. And after reviewing them, I just really decided I needed to kind of condense them into one video and kind of talk about this whole dust collection change I've made and some plans for the future. So the motor on the dust collector that you saw in the previous video is actually a brand new motor. I just literally put that up there a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to speed up my current dust collection blower for the time being. Now that 7.5 horse motor I didn't really purchase intentionally for that blower. Here late this summer, I actually had come across a very lightly used NYB material handling blower from a local company that was actually scrapping out some equipment. I had inquired about the blower and they basically told me that it was mine to take. I just needed to come at some specific times to kind of meet their timelines, and actually showed up, picked it up, they loaded it in the back of my truck, and it was all good. So this blower is actually a New York blower. It's a Series 20 Model GI with an LS 144 fan wheel. Now the nice thing about this blower is that LS 144 fan wheel is specifically designed for handling stringy material like sawdust. So it'll actually work out really well. And the better part about it is that blower actually wasn't actually handling materials, actually used for industrial exhaust. So this blower worked out very well. I've looked at the specs and it's got a very wide range of RPM, CFM, and static pressure and horsepower to be able to pretty much do a lot of different things with it. So in 2018, probably 2019, I'm actually going to be adding a lean-to addition onto the back side of the shop, and actually putting in that blower with a new filter bag setup as well. And it'll give me a little bit more space here in the shop as well, which would be kind of a nice thing. I'll show here at the end some proposed layouts for that time when this project happens, but really kind of want to more so talk about things leading to it as well. So when I got that blower, I didn't have a motor for it. I really thought a 5 horse was going to be too small, especially because I'm going to be moving another 25-30 feet. And I started looking for a 7.5 horsepower motor. So I looked on Craigslist, I looked on eBay, I looked on Amazon. Didn't really find anything I thought was like a really good deal, and I'd kind of like put it off for a little while. Here about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I actually inquired with a local motor shop, and they had said they had stocked several different 7.5 horsepower motors. Depending on what I do, they probably had one that'll suit my needs. So after explaining to them what I was trying to do, they had definitely said that this Baldor motor, which is an FDL 3732M, will definitely handle what I'm trying to do with it. So this motor is a 7.5 horse, single phase, farm duty, totally enclosed, fan cooled, capacitor start, capacitor run, 1750 RPMs, 30 full load amps on 230 volts, 213 frame with an 1.1" shaft, 1.0 service factor. So when I got that, I originally was just going to basically put it in the warehouse, put it on the dolly, and let it sit for a couple of years. I had the motor, I was starting to piece this project together. And then I had this bright idea. It's like, you know what, why don't you just speed up your current dust collection blower for the time being and see how well it's going to work for you, because you're going to basically have the same type of volume with the new blower, but you're going to have more distance behind it. And so that's what I did. So I put the new 7.5 horse motor up on my current dust collection blower. My current dust collection blower that's being used right now is actually a General number 4. Now, this blower I can't find any information on anymore. I originally bought it from General Manufacturing. It's made in Canada originally. It's cast iron. For the little bit I did find out on it, I didn't really find any static pressure on it. Looking at the design of it, I think it's really good for real local use, but as far as long distance with long runs, I don't know if it's really going to do what I wanted to do. So being that I picked up this other blower for nothing, it was really kind of a lucky deal. If I didn't have that, I would have tried with this blower first. So the intentions is when I put the lean-to addition on, I'm going to use the NYB blower, and then not sure I'm going to do it with this blower yet. So that was kind of the first part of it. Now, putting that motor up kind of created a chain of events. The motor is 30 amps. However, My service for my old motor was also 30 amps, even though the motor was only drawing about 22. This motor is good for 30 full load amps on turn 30 volts, and right now I'm only running at about 27 amps with the pulley arrangement and with all gates open. And I didn't think I need to really go anymore. I might open up a little bit, but really where I'm at, I think I'm good. Now, even though I'm using a soft start to start this motor like I used to on my 5-horse motor, it would still trip the 30 amp breaker periodically on startup, even with that soft start. And when I talked to my electrician, he had basically said that ideally just need to do the 8 gauge wire and a 40 amp breaker and be done with it. So that's kind of what I ended up doing next. So I ended up actually pulling out the 10 gauge wire with 8 gauge wire, pulling a new ground, and then I also had to replace the magnetic starter because it turned out to be that my original magnetic starter was only good for 27 continuous amps. This new one's good for 40. So I'm good there. So the breaker and the magnetic starter match. Then I had to replace the disconnect up by the motor with a larger disconnect as well. So that's actually a 60 amp outdoor disconnect that I have up by the motor. So that's all good. Now, when I also talked to my electrician, he said, he said, you're kind of, really limiting yourself with that 100 amp service to what you can do. You should really think about putting in a bigger service. And I always thought about it, but I didn't really know as far as what it would take to do that. So we talked about it for a little bit, and he actually had explained to me it actually was a lot simpler than what I thought it was. So right now, the way this works is my 100 amp panel in the shop here is really no more than a sub panel from the main panel that's in the house. So in the house, there is a 200 amp service and there's a 100 amp breaker that feeds the shop. And basically what he would do is on the back side of the house where the meter base is, actually install a 200 amp service disconnect there and actually add a second set of auxiliary lugs to the load side of the meter. And that would actually feed the 200 amp service or 200 amp panel on the back side of the house. From there then, that 200 amp panel would feed a new 200 amp panel in the shop here. Now, the panel in the shop here is pretty much covered on all 4 sides with knockouts and conduit, and he thought it'd be nice if he could actually replace that 200 amp or that 100 amp panel with the 200 amp panel in its place. But he said, I think what he's going to end up doing is actually leaving that 100 amp panel here and creating that as a sub panel. And then the new 200 amp panel will have a 100 amp breaker that actually feeds that panel. And basically probably reuse the breaker over from the one that's in the house. But that's kind of what the intentions are. So I think before I do the lean-to addition, I think this electrical service will happen probably this spring before anything else happens, because that'll give me the more options to add more circuits if I need it. With some changes I'll be showing you here in the end of the video of some proposed changes. It would definitely be in my benefit. Plus, he also told me, he said, you may never use more than 100 amps, but he said at the same time, if you ever wanted to add a rotary phase converter, now you have the power to do it. So, and he said he was going to check into the other things, making sure that the pole was big enough and that the power company ran heavy enough wire from the pole to the meter. If not, he said that we have to work that out, but he was going to check it out here sometime in the next month or so and let me know what else needs to be done. So kind of excited about that, because I originally thought I might have to have a separate meter and go through all that other stuff, but he said it was actually a lot simpler. So I'm kind of excited about that. So I'm going to show you now some proposed layouts, a current layout and a new proposed layout for the shop here with some of those changes. Okay, so this is a bigger picture of the overall building. This building is 36 feet wide, 72 feet high, with an approximately 9.5 foot high ceiling in it. This here is the shop again. This is the main shop. The interior dimensions 22 by 34. And again, this is the exact same layout. Here's the overhead door, the walk-in door, and then everything else you saw previously. Changes are in blue. So let me zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so basically by removing the dust collector blower motor and blower assembly over this entry door and the bag house, I've freed up about another 20 square feet or so. So I plan on doing there is actually building a narrow vertical storage rack for short cutoffs of plywood, and maybe I'll organize it for some solid stock as well, up to 4 feet long. And then I'll have a place to kind of park the 13 spindle line boring machine. And that's kind of basically the bulk of what I'm going to talk about in this video briefly. Let me go into this section here a little bit and talk a bit about this proposed area. Okay, so this side of the shop here, the only time you really get to see anything is over in this section right here. Here's where the current air compressor is, the Cast Air 80-gallon two-stage compressor. I plan on adding the Quincy 325, putting that back in service and putting on another 80-gallon tank. I might run them together, or I might actually run separate airline circuits. Reason being is this section right here, actually this whole side here, is being occupied currently by my dad, who does some HVAC sheet metal work. So he's got some sheet metal equipment in here that he eventually will be selling off here as he basically ends the business. And I really want to turn this into a finishing room, kind of working out some details yet, kind of getting slowly involved as far as what it's going to take. But basically this, what used to be a sliding door here, will actually plan on doing a pair of double doors and somehow fit them with some filters. And then basically I'm planning on using an exhaust chamber, which is essentially a spray booth without the sides or top or lights. I'm kind of working the details on that yet, so once I know more I'll kind of get into that. Every state and every code and county and all that stuff is different, so I don't have a lot of details on this yet. This section here is where the furnace is, the boiler will be installing for the hydronic heat in the shop here, and then a water heater as well. This is going to be kind of the maintenance and repair area as well, so anything that I have to do where it's repairing something household or something for the property or something in the shop, this is kind of a maintenance shop here. And then obviously, as I mentioned, the finishing room. So anything in blue is not currently existing, and it's proposed plans for the future. So probably the biggest change that I'm really looking forward to, that's probably going to happen quicker than any of this, is this up here. This is the new dust collection room, which is the lean-to add-on edition I mentioned earlier. This is 10 feet by 12 feet. To make this work, right now I have a current 8-inch main line going into the blower over here, and that 8-inch trunk would actually go through the wall, and then it would actually go 245s and then straight back to the east here and go straight into the blower, and then the blower would blow it into filter bags over drums. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to redo this. Currently right now I'm using two Murphy Rogers MRT9 filter bags over 55-gallon drums, so it's a single stage unit. I would like to keep it simple, so I'm not sure all the detail yet. I might actually think about making this 14 feet and using 4 filter bags, and I might actually build a dust collection unit very similar to the Reese dust collectors, where it's actually a manifold that actually has a very short filter bag that connects the manifold to a drum, and then on top of that there's actually the filter bags with no hole in the top. The other one is the Dust Tech, which has a very similar idea, but instead of drums on the bottom, a lot of times they have plastic bags. So it uses a series of baffles, that way they all kind of fill up evenly. So that's kind of yet to be worked out. I might just stick with 2 drums as well as I currently have. So with that being said, one of the big changes that has to happen with that is being that now I'm physically drawing air out of the shop here and drawing it into this room, and basically filling this room with air. I want to return that air and bring it back to the shop, so I'll have to have a return trunk line that brings air back to the shop. talking with the local county commissioner about this project, they had highly recommended that I actually insulate this for noise, being I have some neighbors within about a mile radius out in the country here. He just said it'd be just kind of courteous to do that, and it's actually a benefit for me because any warm air that's being sucked out, I have a chance of capturing some of that warm air back. Obviously it'll still cool off a little bit, but for the most part I'll still have some fairly warm air coming back. So both the main trunk line going to the blower and the return air line will have to be insulated to help maintain the heat loss. So let me just zoom in a little bit here. So again, this is 10 foot by 12 foot. I got a 6 foot double door here. I debated if I wanted to put the door here or here, and I was really mostly concerned about putting the door here, more so if I need to service the motor or the blower assembly. That way I can come in here with the skid steer and drive right into this if I have to, being that this motor weighs probably about 130, 140 pounds. Might be easier to make an attachment to put on the bucket or a pallet forks to be able to kind of work with that. I could put it here. The problem is that right here is where the trunk would come out, and I believe haven't worked out all the details yet, but I'm going to be coming out at 8 feet and then have to come down. If I raise this blower up, probably about 4 feet off the ground, so it's above the barrels, I can make this run shorter, which means that the blower can be more here versus have being pushed out closer to here. But it's all minor detail that has to be worked out yet. But this is the change right here. That is the one that's going to probably happen in 2018 and 2019. I'll have to pour this pad first, which will probably be next year sometime, and then the following year actually frame this. So I'm actually going to keep the roof line the same. So this will end up being approximately 8 feet out here. So yeah, that's the plans for the near future. Like I said, the finish room here, I'm not sure when this is going to happen. This might be a year or two out yet, I'm not sure. I haven't gotten a lot of details as far as when my dad's actually planning on fully retiring. I know that he's, with health reasons, that he's really looking at it very heavily. Financially, it's not an issue. It's just kind of giving up something he enjoys. So it'll be interesting to see when this actually happens and as far as what it takes to get it to do what I want to do. But this one here would just be a nice improvement overall.
Alright guys, hope you guys enjoy this video. Questions and positive comments are welcome. Thanks for watching.